මේවකට අත්වශයෙන්ම මේ මුදල් ඇමතිවරයානේ ඕක අපේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉදිරිපත් කරේ. ඉතින් මුදල් ඇමතිතුමාගෙන්ම ඒ වෙලාවේ අහන්න තිබ්බා.
No need to question. Arrest Karuna, says former army commander Sarath Fonseca. NEC notifies for promotional billboards of former president to be removed from Polonnaruwa. Sri Lanka Army deploys 9 locally manufactured soldier transport vehicles for UN peacekeeping operations.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandru Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your local news. The chief incumbent of the Abherama Temple, Venerable Muruthettuwe Anandathera, played an active role in voting the current ruling faction into power. The chief incumbent issued a warning during a media briefing today.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is the leader whom you expected, has been voted into power. A country cannot be built simply because the president of our choice is in power. We should look into the problems of the people and advise him how to resolve them. However, we can see that some of the close allies and followers of Gotabaya Rajapaksa are scoundrels and do not have a proper personality. Therefore, if President Gotabaya Rajapaksa protects himself from these people, he will be able to run the country properly. What happened to every president and every state leader? They failed because they conducted themselves based on the advice of the people around them.
The US Embassy in Colombo said no MCC grant monies were ever transferred to or spent by the government of Sri Lanka under the proposed $480 million grant. The embassy made this statement in response to a revelation made in the MCC Review Committee report that the previous government had already received $10 million under the MCC agreement.
The final report of the MCC Review Committee was handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday. Chairman of the committee, Professor Lalitha Gunaruwan, revealed that 2 phases of the MCC agreement were signed in 2017 and 2018. He also revealed that the then government had received $10 million under the MCC agreement. However, the details made public by the MCC Review Committee were revealed by the leader of the JVP, Anrakumara Dissanayake, in February this year.
2 additional agreements were signed on the 26th of July 2019 and the 18th of June 2018. Now the government must decide on if these agreements will be done away with, or Ranil Wickremesinghe must say that he did not sign the agreements. Not only they have signed these agreements, they have already received $10 million from these agreements. They have signed the 2 additional agreements as well. What should the government do now? Ranil Wickremesinghe must tell the country as to if or not he signed these agreements. It was not us, but the finance minister at the time who presented this. Asked that from the finance minister. If there has been any wrong done, punish them. We challenge the authorities to take action without just speaking about these matters during the run-up of the election. If what they say is true, take legal action against them. These days, many revelations that are made are untrue. That is the nature of dirty politics.
MCC
During the run-up to the election, they said that we are trying to divide the country through this MCC agreement. The ghost that they created then has become a pussycat today. Do not lie to the people and conceal the true facts. Today they are changing what they said then.
The MCC agreement was bought by our own people back then to defeat Sajith Premadasa. I can remember it was Ranil Wickremesinghe's minority gang that brought this agreement in the middle of the presidential campaign and conspired against our candidate. There is no doubt about the stance of Sajith Premadasa's Samagi Jana Balawegaya. If they try to sign the MCC, we will create a massive opposition in the country against it.
ඒ අය ඔප්පු කරන්න ඕන. මම නම් ඒක ගැන කිසිම දැනුමක් නැහැ. හැබැයි
They must prove that I have no knowledge regarding that. Before the presidential election, they said they will tear the agreement. Did they make those statements without examining this agreement? The president must say if this will be protected or will it be torn apart. All these other stories are fairy tales. This is the main issue.
අනිත් කතාව ඔය ඔක්කොම සුරංගන කතා. නමුත් මේක තමයි මූලික ප්‍රශ්නේ.
MCC කිවිසුම සම්බන්ධව පත් කරපු අනුකමිටුවේ
The final report of the MCC review committee has been presented. The report has clearly highlighted the adverse effects of the MCC agreement and the danger it poses to our country. Also, the government has inked 2 agreements in secret. We will take all necessary measures to take our country out of this agreement through the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
අපේ රජය ජනාධිපති ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමන්ගේ රජය
අන්තර්ගතය පිළිබඳ අපි උනන්දු වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා හේලි රඹුක්කල මැතිතුමා ප්‍රකාශ කළා.
අපිට නම් අපේ දේශපාලනයේදී ඒ කාලේ එකයි මේ කාලේ එකයි කියලා එකක් නැහැ. අපේ
We don't have 2 stances where we say one thing then and change our view now. When we were in the opposition, we opposed the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Agreement after reading the content of it. There might be people who oppose the agreement then without knowing anything about the content of the agreement just because they were going with the flow. We opposed not only the MCC agreement but the AXA and SOFA agreements, knowing very well of its content. When you consider all of these 3 agreements, you can see that the MCC agreement will adversely affect the country. Therefore, we will never agree to these subservient agreements.
එකක්. ඒ නිසා අපි කිසිසේත්ම ඒ පරගති කිවිසුමට මේ රට ගොදුරු වෙන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මම දැන් පසුගිය රජයේ 2017 සහ 2018 ඒ අවුරුදු දෙකේම මේ වෙනකොට මිලියන 10ක් අරන් තියෙනවා ඩොලර් මිලියන.
ඒ අවසන් වාර්තාවේ සඳහන් වෙනවා ඩොලර් මිලියන 10ක් අරගෙන තියෙනවා.
The final report speaks of $10 million that the country received. There is no trace of where the money went. I am not sure if Charita Ratwatt or Ranil Wickremesinghe used the money because the MCC office was at Temple Trees. So it's questionable what happened to this money.
ඉතින් එතකොට මේ සල්ලි වලට මොනවද උනේ කියන එක ප්‍රශ්නයක්.
These are collective responsibilities. Now, a member of the United National Party will come forward and ask why the MCC agreement is not being torn. Although they have engaged in dirty acts, they are asking us to tear the agreement. We will bring before the law and punish anyone who attempts to betray the country and allow foreigners to take ownership over it.
අඩුවම් දිය යුතුයි. මේගොල්ලෝ කියයි ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ තිබෙන වගන්තිවල අනුකූලව අපි අලුත් කිවිසුමකට යනවා කියලා.
These people are saying that they are going to go for a new agreement that does not contradict the provisions of our constitution. No matter what they change, if they are going to sign the agreement with the MCC, do you think they are signing these agreements with us because they love us? They are doing it to go beyond the AXA and SOFA agreement. They are giving us $485 million for that. When are they going to do away with the agreements regarding the Trincomalee oil tanks, the MCC and the Hambantota port? What do they have to say about the 6 acres of land that they have sold to Shangri-La? If ever a world war breaks out, you can see how our country will be used by China and America as strategic locations in our country that has been sold off. When they couldn't get it done through the people who wear ties and coats, America, China and India are now trying to get it done through people who are wearing shawls.
ජාතික ඇඳුම ඇඳගත්ත සාටකේ දාන හෝ නොදාන අයගෙන් කරගන්න ඇමරිකාවත් ඉන්දියාවත් චීනෙත් පෙළඹිලා තිබෙනවා. මම ආණ්ඩුවට අනතුරු හැඟීමක් කරනවා.
I would like to issue a warning to the government. Mr. President, you are from Ruhuna. You are a son of D.A. Rajapaksa, who is an eminent leader. Make an order at least now to close down this office. Mervyn Silva has Ruhuna blood. I respectfully request for an order to be made that this agreement has been done away with. Take an oath that you will do this. If that is not done, I will travel like King Dudugamunu and come from Rajarata to Ruhuna and carry out a massive campaign against the Rajpaksas. Not only that, I point my index finger at these foreign outsiders and say to them, leave this country.
පර සුද්දට මං කියනවා කාර්යාලේ අකුලගෙන ඵලයව් කියලා මං දබරගිල්ල දික් කළා කියනවා.
When contacting the US Embassy regarding the MCC, they responded with a timeline of events related to the program. According to the timeline released by the embassy in December of 2015, Sri Lanka qualifies for MCC threshold program. Between January and November of 2016, the government of Sri Lanka hires Harvard University, which identifies weak transport infrastructure and land administration as binding constraints to growth. In December of 2016, Sri Lanka qualifies for MCC Compact program. The detailed project proposal was submitted to the MCC in November of 2017.
The management of MCC has approved the project in July of 2018, and in September of that year, the then president met with the CEO of MCC in New York. In October of 2018, the government of Sri Lanka and MCC delegation, led by Treasury Secretary, negotiate compact and terms of assistance. In April of 2019, the MCC board approves $480 million grant agreement, and Sri Lanka's cabinet had approved the project in October the same year. The US Embassy said in February this year that the US and Sri Lankan government discussed the next steps of the project. However, the embassy had forgotten a fact about the MCC. And that was the operation of an MCC office at Temple Trees, where the then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was staying.
Here is an article with the letterhead of the Prime Minister's office. This is written on the 15th of February 2019. It is directed to Mr. W.H. Karunaratne, Secretary, Ministry of Land and Parliamentary Reforms. Who signs it? R. Sirivardhana, National Consultant Coordinator of Millennium Challenge Corporation, Sri Lanka office. Second floor, new building, North Wing, Temple Trees, Colombo 3.
Temple Trees, Colombo 3.
Why did the US Embassy forget the office at Temple Trees? While the review committee on the MCC compact had posed several issues, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, had called on Minister of Power Mahinda Amravira yesterday. During the meeting, the US ambassador had informed that the US is willing to support Sri Lanka towards the development of its energy sector. The ambassador had informed the Minister of Power, Mahinda Amravira, that the US is willing to provide technical assistance on constructing the country's first LNG power plant. In addition, the ambassador had also agreed to extend technical support to curb traffic congestion. Yesterday, the committee that reviewed the MCC agreement had heavily criticized the land administration project listed out in the pact. Is attention being drawn towards energy-related projects to divert the scope of the MCC agreement from land administration to energy? Countries like Liberia, Benin and Ghana have already commenced energy-related projects. Against such a backdrop, attempts are also being made to implement energy-related projects in Nepal under the MCC agreement. Is the US ambassador eyeing energy-related projects in Sri Lanka to bring forth the MCC agreement in a different form?
Meanwhile, a report shows that the government of Sri Lanka is cooperating with the United States of America to train Sri Lankan Coast Guard and Navy personnel on maritime law enforcement and security operation through the Container Security Initiative Mega Ports Initiative. The US Mega Ports Initiative is being implemented in nearly 31 countries around the world at prominent seaports to protect the world's shipping network from dangerous cargo and nuclear material. The 2019 country report on terrorism for Sri Lanka issued by the US Bureau of Counterterrorism stated that Sri Lanka's borders and maritime security remained vulnerable. The report added that ISIS-inspired terrorists conducted a series of suicide attacks against churches and hotels across Sri Lanka on the 21st of April. According to the report, Sri Lanka police cooperated extensively with the FBI on the investigation into the April 21st attacks.
Amidst the widespread debate on US influence, concerns have arisen over attempts made to provide the East Container Terminal in Colombo Port to foreign nations.
The East Container Terminal of the Colombo Port is an important location in the Indian Ocean maritime route. This is also the deepest terminal at the Colombo Port. Sri Lanka's Ports Authority spent a large sum for the preliminary stages of development at the port. Against such a backdrop, the previous government proposed to operate the East Container Terminal via a joint venture company with India, Japan and Sri Lanka. However, employees at the port stress that operations at the East Container Terminal must not be given to foreign factions. The 3 gantry cranes that were brought into Sri Lanka are yet to be set up. There is a force within the port that is hindering the development of the East Container Terminal.
චන්ද්‍රිකාගේ පාලනය PNO සමාගම් වෙත වරා එක ජැටියක් පවරා දෙන්න ලැබුවා.
One jetty of the Colombo port was given out while Chandrika served as the president. The South Container Terminal was given to China during Mahinda Rajapaksa's presidency. The East Container Terminal is the only terminal that can handle large vessels. While Arjuna Rantunga served as the Minister of Ports, a cabinet paper was presented to bring down the gantry cranes. Ranil Wickremesinghe did not grant approval for this cabinet paper. As one section had already been given to China, there was pressure from India on the other end. Ranil Wickremesinghe giving into this had already laid the foundation to give control of the East Container Terminal to a joint venture company between India, Japan and Sri Lanka. As a country, what we must do now is to set up 3 gantry cranes at the East Container Terminal. The cranes that arrived at the port on the 20th have not been set up until date. They are hindering attempts made to set up the cranes. What is the government doing? Before the 17th of November, they spoke about patriotism. Mahinda Rajapaksa said he will cancel the agreement with China on the Hambantota port once he comes into power, but the port still belongs to the Chinese government. Mahinda Rajapaksa's faction pledged to cancel the MCC agreement. However, all plans are intact to implement it. Mahinda Rajapaksa's faction said the East Container Terminal will be developed and taken forward under the purview of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. But this is being hampered as well. The government during these 6 months have proved how their economic policies plan on selling national assets to foreign nations. The East Container Terminal is the perfect example for this.
Convening a media briefing today, the railway trade union said preparations are underway to hand over a project to issue tickets to a Chinese company.
The tender has been prepared for a project to issue tickets, and this has been presented to the Cabinet of Ministers. Also, steps are underway to award this project to a Chinese company. This must be stopped immediately because this can be done in our country itself. Don't we have engineers in our country to prepare a ticket issuing system? Don't we have capable engineers in our country? We saw that in the past, many modern inventions came to the limelight in the country during the COVID-19 outbreak. So why can't we design something for ourselves? We have the knowledge. If there is an IT engineer that volunteers, we can give him our knowledge on the railway system. We can definitely unite and do this within our country. We have enough of companies in the country to do that. If not, someone can volunteer and we can do this together. Why should we obtain more loans in dollars and push the country further down this debt trap? Why are we doing this?
Defence Secretary Kamal Gunaratne reiterated his warnings against the narcotic menace in the country today. He made these remarks during foundation stone laying ceremony of a rehabilitation centre in Netambua.
The murderers who destroy the lives of the children must be brought before the law. These murderers are in different forms. Some are drug dealers and underworld leaders, while the others are dependent on the money of underworld leaders. You might receive your share from the underworld and drug racketeers. But remember, every single grain of rice and every drop of water that you feed your children ignites pain in the hearts of the other parents. What must take place is to protect these children who have fallen trapped to this. Under the second phase, we must protect our future generations from the corrupt citizens of this country. The third step would be to catch the corrupt individuals who indirectly serve as supportive forces for these illegal acts by misusing their powers and the uniform given by the state. It is the enemy within us that is more dangerous than an outside enemy. If individuals clad in uniforms who are tasked with bringing these culprits before the law also engage in such activities, we will take action against them as well.
Meanwhile, the Criminal Investigations Department is questioning 5 police officers, including a sub-inspector, over an alleged incident where a stock of drugs seized by the Police Narcotics Bureau was sold to drug smugglers. The investigations into the incident were launched. Facts on the incident were reported to the acting IGP by the Deputy IGP in charge of the Police Narcotics Bureau. According to the police media spokesperson, the investigations have still not concluded that such an incident had taken place.
Underworld gang member and drug trafficker who went by the alias Katavala Pitiya Sampath was shot dead by police at Malwatu Hiripitiya in Gampaha. According to police, Katavalapitiya Sampath was a subordinate of notorious underworld gangster Gane Mulle Sanjeeva. According to a communique issued by the police headquarters, the suspect had several charges of murder and drug smuggling levelled against him. The suspect, Katavalapitiya Sampath, had driven off on his motorcycle, ignoring police orders to stop at a road blockade along Puakwatta Road in Malwatu Hiripitiya in Gampaha at around 5:30 am today. The suspect, who had opened fire at officers following a police pursuit, had died in retaliatory fire. Katavalapitiya Sampath was a 25-year-old resident of Mevitiya, Ellakkala. A revolver manufactured overseas was seized from the suspect's possession. According to police, the suspect had functioned as a shooter for various criminal gangs, and investigations have revealed the suspect was also connected to the shooting that killed a woman on the 28th of August 2018 in Kadawatha. Meanwhile, 2 suspects have been arrested for transporting heroin from Colombo to Gampala. Our correspondent stated that they were arrested during a vehicle inspection at the Kirinda area along the Gampala-Kandy main road. It is reported that alias Sudha and Biegama Thisera of Aturugiriya have been involved in heroin trade with Sankar, a close accomplice of Angudalokka. Police have seized 160 grams of heroin and a vehicle from their possession. During interrogations, it has been revealed that the duo had been posing as insurance agents and had been involved in heroin smuggling in Gampala, Navalapitiya, Ginigathena, Hatton, Thalawakale and Nuwara Elia areas. The suspects were arrested by the Gampala Divisional Narcotics Unit and further investigations are underway. Police arrested 2 suspects in Gonapala, Horana for the possession of 1.28 kilograms of heroin. According to the police, the suspects, a man and a woman, were arrested during a raid carried out based on a tip-off by the Dehiwala Police, the Mount Lavinia Anti-Crimes Division and the Police Special Motorcycle Unit. Investigations have revealed that the suspects had operated the drug racket through a house rented in Gonapala. The police said they had recovered 230,000 rupees and several accessories. The seized stock of heroin is worth over 10 million rupees. The 2 suspects, aged 33 and 35, are residents of Matugama and Paraduwa. Meanwhile, Mount Lavinia police have recovered a foreign-manufactured revolver and 5 live bullets. The revelation was made after Kohuwala police questioned a suspect following a detention order. Police said the revolver was recovered from a location opposite the suspect's house in the Angulana area.
Various statements were made about the conduct of Binigamurthy Mulithran alias Karuna Amman. According to the former commander of the army, the statement he made is sufficient grounds for his arrest.
He first speaks through his mouth, then he speaks from the other side. He spoke like a thug and insulted the army and said those things to demean the army. He said that 3,000 were killed here and there, and that is not true. 1,200 soldiers surrendered in Mullaitivu and they were murdered after they surrendered. He did not kill anyone in Kilnochi. He did not kill anyone at Elephant Pass. I don't know if Karuna Amman is a small person or a big person, but the law will not be enforced against him. He accepts that he is a terrorist, and he accepts that as a terrorist he attacked the government forces, and he also admits that he murdered army personnel. He is an LTT terrorist and a murderer. There is no doubt there. The CID does not have to record a statement from him for over 7 hours. They can decide within 30 minutes and file legal action against him.
Did
Karuna Amman express the stance of the government? On this side, they speak about nationalism and racism and about being a Sinhalese. Now, a main ally of the government is going to the north and saying that they murdered 2,500 to 3,000 soldiers in Kilnochi. This is a serious statement. So arrest Karuna Amman immediately. Arrest him and question him. You will not only be able to uncover many other details, you will also be able to find the armories in the north and the east. You will also be able to find explosives, the money and the gold that the LTT had buried, and even information on everything that they stole from the people. During the war with the LTTE, we got him to our side and we took the advantage from it. We must remind that. But when it comes to this statement, I am of the stance that the law must be enforced against him. While believing as a nation that although the tiger changes its forest, it cannot change its spots, we must remember when we are establishing a government that lions do not eat grass even if they are hungry. The statement that you made, Karuna Amman, is dirty and unacceptable. We now see a new group of people behind Venerable Ratanathero who claim to be patriots and that they are the people who love the country. Now when the commander-in-chief who saved the country, who is the future prime minister, the president, the army commander, people who clearly love the country are contesting the election from one side, I feel that someone is spending money behind Venerable Ratanathero.
රතන හාමුදුරුවන් පිටිපස්සේ මට දැනෙනවා කවුරුන් හෝ උන්වහන්සේලා පිටිපස්සේ මුදල් වේදම් කරනවා. මහ සොහොන් බලකාය නමින් ජාතියක් ගැන කතා කරන්නේ මහරජාලා තනන ආයතනවල සල්ලිද කියන්න අපිට හිතෙනවා. මොකද ඔවුන් නිතා දුප්පත් නැතිබරි කියලා කිව්වට ඔවුන්ගේ ඡන්ද ව්‍යාපාරයේ දිහා බලනකොට නුවර පැත්තේ අත් දකින්න ඇති ගම්පහ අපිත් දකිනවා. ඉතා ධනවත් බලවත් පිරිසක් ඔවුන් පිටිපස්සේ.
We have more news in store for you, but first a quick commercial break.
I decided to pursue my career in law and chose RIC as my higher education provider. Considering their experience in the educational sphere and the consistent quality which they have been maintaining over the years. I'm ever so thankful that RIC has always made sure to provide me with the perfect environment, people and support to reach my full potential in my academic path.
Local news. The Colombo Commercial High Court today refused to grant an interim injunction against Harrison's Colombo Limited and International Cosmetics Private Limited with respect to a case filed over the packaging, labelling and get-ups of Ape Te. Action filed against Harrison's Colombo Limited and International Cosmetics Private Limited by Watavala Tea Ceylon Limited was taken up this morning in the presence of Colombo Commercial High Court Judge Sampath Vijayaratna. The action claimed the defendants' Apete product packaging, labelling and the get-ups are identical and or similar to the packaging, labelling of Watavala tea products. Colombo Commercial High Court Judge Sampath Vijayaratna, while refusing to grant an interim injunction, set aside the enjoining order against the defendant companies as well. On the instructions of Julius and Creasy, counsel appearing for the defendant companies, Harrison's Colombo Limited and International Cosmetics Private Limited, states that today's consumers are not in the habit of making assumptions on the origin of goods based on color or the packaging because color is not used as an identification of a trademark. Counsel further stated that colors are not capable of distinguishing one trader's goods from those of another. Colombo Commercial High Court decision to refuse an interim injunction is a turning point in the Sri Lanka's judicial process with respect to brands and colors. Apete products will now be available to all consumers starting today at all outlets in the country. ₹122 million.
The contraband, weighing 24,000 kilograms, was shipped to Sri Lanka from India on the 14th of March 2020 aboard Cape Memo, a container ship. Assistance is sought from the CID to locate the suspects connected to this illegal operation. The beedi leaves or tendu leaves were shipped to Sri Lanka from Chennai, India, under the guise of importing raw materials required for a BOI registered factory located at Katunayaka Export Processing Zone. The contraband was discovered after two freight containers were inspected by the Port Control Unit of Sri Lanka Customs yesterday. Customs Superintendent Lal Virakon said one suspect connected to the discovery was arrested and was released on a bond following interrogation. Sri Lanka Customs said if the beedi leaves or tendu leaves were imported to the country legally, the tax on it alone would be over 100 million rupees. Sri Lanka Customs said a statement was recorded from a representative from the company responsible for importing the freight containers. Customs is investigating the matter on multiple avenues, including CCTV footage.
The Samagi Janabala Vega convened a Balamandala meeting in Baduralia today.
The meeting that was held under the auspices of leader of the Samagi Janabala Vega, Sajith Premadasa, was organized by the electoral organizer of the Agalawatha electorate. The meeting was attended by several factions including Kumar Velgama, Ajit P. Pereira and Jagat Vitana.
මේ ආණ්ඩුව බලයට පත් වෙලා ජනවාරි මාසයේ මොකද්ද කරේ? මේ රටේ විශ්‍රාමික ප්‍රජාවට එල්ල කර
After the new government came into power, what did they do in January? They did the worst that could be done to all senior citizens. When we were in power, we increased the salaries of state employees under 5 stages. In total, an increase of 10,000 rupees. We had even made the fund allocations to resolve the pension anomalies for senior citizens. But what did this government do? They put forward a cabinet paper and halted the steps we took to resolve the pension anomaly. When we win on the 5th, we will take measures to restore this.
කැබිනට් පේපරයක් අනුමත කරනවා කියලා මම තමුන්නාසලට කියන්නේ.
The Polonnaruwa District Elections Office has notified to remove the promotional billboards of former President Maithripala Sirisena from Polonnaruwa. The Polonnaruwa District Elections Office stated that it has received complaints that the photographs, plaques and billboards of the former president on the projects carried out during his tenure are still on display in the local government jurisdiction. Still in local news, Sri Lanka state-owned enterprises continue to suffer massive losses in 2019. Zinat Musaffar filed this report.
According to the Finance Ministry's annual report, 21 state-owned enterprises suffered losses amounting to 152 billion rupees in 2019, a marginal decline of 6% compared to 160.7 billion rupees in 2018. The highest loss-making SOEs, the Ceylon Electricity Board, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Sri Lankan Airlines, accounted for approximately 93% of the total losses. The Ceylon Electricity Board in 2019 suffered a loss of 85.4 billion rupees. According to the Finance Minister's annual report, the Ceylon Electricity Board had financed its losses through borrowings from banks for its working capital requirements, whereby total exposure to state banks increased to 89 billion by the end of 2019. As at end 2019, outstanding dues payable to CPC and independent power producers stood at 122 billion rupees. In 2019, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation suffered a loss of 11.8 billion rupees, bringing the accumulated losses to 337 billion at the end of 2019. Trade receivables, which stood at 95 billion rupees at the end of 2018, had increased to 164 billion rupees by the end of 2019, resulting in the CPC's exposure to the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank to close at 566 billion rupees. CPC has been financing the operations of the electricity sector, in particular, with about 102 billion remaining unpaid at the end of 2019. Treasury guarantees amounting to $1.8 billion has been issued to cover the exposure to Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. Sri Lankan Airlines suffered a loss of 44 billion in 2019. As of 31st March 2019, the balance sheet carried a negative equity of 168 billion rupees with an outstanding debt amounting to $699.7 million. As of end 2019, Sri Lankan Airlines had a payable balance of 26.8 billion rupees with the CPC, while loans worth 64 billion rupees had been obtained from state banks, Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board in 2019 suffered a loss of 1.2 billion rupees. To strengthen the financial position of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, budgetary support was extended by way of equity contribution, amounting to 4.4 billion rupees in 2019. The absence of coherent pricing policies, inadequate levels of capital infusion and incompetent management were the leading factors identified by the Finance Ministry for the losses in 2019. But the question is, are the losses limited to 152 billion or are they much more? Quantifying the performance of SOEs here in Sri Lanka is an impossible task, as the only information available on public enterprises are those published by the Finance Ministry, and that too for less than 10% of all state-owned enterprises.
a few key reforms could be considered. The first would be to compile a comprehensive list of all state entities. The Ministry of Finance identifies that there are over 400 state entities in Sri Lanka, while the Advocate Institute has identified over 500. An ongoing monitoring system could be set up with a clear framework to track key performance indicators in line with the OECD's guidelines on corporate governance of state enterprises. Thirdly, the government could strengthen the Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts and the Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises to improve accountability within the system.
Based on Finance Ministry statistics, the accumulated losses of SOEs since 2006 amount to approximately 1.09 trillion rupees. Research highlights that repeated instances of fraud, mismanagement, corruption and negligence, insufficient internal controls, the lack of oversight and governance, and the absence of a climate of integrity are the main contributors to the losses suffered over the years.
In 2019, the total losses sustained by the key 52 state entities amounted to rupees 151 billion, with budgetary support amounting to 49 billion. Of this 49 billion of budgetary support, 20 billion was allocated for recurrent expenditures on salaries and overhead costs. A key reason for these losses is the lack of oversight and governance structures in state enterprises.
I have examined about 700 enterprises during my 5-year period. In my experience, enterprises suffer from one single central factor cause, and that is the politicization. That's the politicization. If we can do away with all other factors that emerge from that central factor can be eliminated, and we'll be in a position to run them profitably.
With the outbreak of COVID-19 in Sri Lanka and across the globe, the performance of state-owned institutions is expected to decline further. How will state-owned enterprises survive the new normal? Stay tuned to News First for more on this. This is Zeenat Musafir.
Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has taken measures to commence the second stage of the compensation payments to the depositors of the finance company PLC with effect from the 2nd of July 2020. Accordingly, such payments will be taken place at 63 branches of the People's Bank island-wide. In terms of the compensation mechanism, rupees 600,000 is paid per depositor basis. Under this second stage, compensation to all the depositors confirmed by the TFC will be commencing from the 2nd of July 2020. Further information can be obtained from Central Bank's official website. Also, the Central Bank released a statement in response to various media reports that West's responsibility of failure and subsequent cancellation of license of several finance companies licensed under the Finance Business Act.
In response to the recent incident where a person was assaulted and murdered by employees of an unauthorized financial institution, the Central Bank pointed out that the said institution had not been registered by it to carry out finance leasing business, and therefore any finance leasing business carried out by such an institution constitutes an offence. Upon receipt of information, investigations into such unauthorized conduct would be carried out by the Central Bank. The Central Bank advises the general public to obtain finance leasing facilities only from registered leasing establishments registered by the Central Bank under the Finance Leasing Act No. 56 of 2000. Reiterating the requirement for enactment of a legal framework to regulate unregulated money lending activities, the Central Bank pointed out the need for the enactment of the proposed Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority Act approved by the Monetary Board.
Let's now take a look at some of the matters that figured during the heated political platform today.
2020.
It is only the Samagi Janabala Vegia that conducts itself against the government. All the others have struck deals with the government. The people believe that they can vote for the symbol of the telephone and help us clinch power. Since they are afraid of losing, they claim that we will defect to the opposition side after winning the election. We will not do that. However, we have been informed that the United National Party is now attempting to form a coalition government. Although they might do that, we won't do it. Once the party that bears the telephone symbol wins the election, Rauf will defect to the other side. Digambaran will also do that. Rishad Badruddin will also defect. We have a heritage here. We must not betray the heritage we have. Ranil Wickremesinghe has a duty to provide jobs for party supporters. The United National Party, in which Navin Dissanayake serves as the leader or deputy leader, will definitely do that. Only a bullet can stop me. I will play every trick I can. It was Ranil Wickremesinghe who deprived your uncle from becoming the president of this country. He will not allow you to achieve your dreams of becoming a leader. There are people who are close to him and whom he wants to promote to the leadership positions. That is why this party had been split in two.
ඉන්නවා ඒ අය නිසා තමයි මේ පක්ෂය දෙකට කරන තැනට තල්ලු කරගෙන ආවේ. ආව නලින් බණ්ඩාර. ඔව් ප්‍රවෘත්ති සාකච්ඡාව ගැන මම ගන්නම් ඈ. හරි. Okay.
දුරකථනයේ ආණ්ඩු
They say that the party represented by the symbol of the telephone will win the election and make Sajid Premadasa the Prime Minister. Leave aside the post of Prime Minister, the government and the Parliament. On the 6th of August, rotate the dial in the telephone and listen to it. It will say that the number you called is not in use. Please try again later. It was Mangala who first received this message. Can you take an elephant to a polling station? No. You will be able to take the flower bud. The police will ask you to leave it outside. Similarly, you will be able to take a compass with you. That is the only symbol that is ideal to be promoted. The United National Party will protect the symbol of the elephant. If the symbol is released, the Rajapaksas might use the symbol and form another party. Then the United National Party will lose the symbol of the elephant. Even a small child can understand that if someone leaves the party, it will favor the SLPP. Therefore, this deal is not being done by us, but by those who conduct themselves in favor of the Rajapaksas. The elephant has been tied by a small string for 20 to 25 years. It has been tied by strong chains. However, even when this small string is tied to the elephant, it feels that it has been tied by strong chains. We wish to ask Ranil to get rid of that foolishness, as we will get hold of the United National Party after the 5th of August. Today we have confirmed our two-thirds majority. The Samagi Janabalavegi and the members of the UNP will join hands with us. The people have rallied together for a strong government to amend the constitution and actively contribute towards the future of this country. Comments are being expressed regarding the two-thirds majority only to create enthusiasm among the people. That will not happen. Mahinda formed the two-thirds majority but not through their votes. This is what they will have to do this time as well. There might be plenty of people who are ready to do that. They obtain the votes from the people from a different party and then cross over to the other side. We face challenges in areas like this. However, we have never imagined that the supporters and the leaders in our faction will face such a pressure. I felt that pressure when I went to the Deniaya electorate. I remember the first meeting we had in Deniaya town after the 8th of January 2015 was to make Mahinda Rajapaksa the Prime Minister. There are individuals who took part in canvassing activities while ignoring the threats that they faced. There is an issue as to whether you have been repaid for your commitments through the party or the government. I believe that a system must be created to bear responsibility for all those who made sacrifices on behalf of this party and Mahinda Rajapaksa. We can see different objects such as neem leaves and bottles flowing through the Nilvala river. It is the empty objects that flow through the water. Heavy objects are at the bottom of the river. Even during this election, the empty objects will float while the heavy ones stay below the surface. Some leaders have forgotten that. It is by doing this that we won the election by 30,000 votes.
The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau has decided to call for an explanation from all exploration license holders at Manus Island over a massive mineral exploration project that has been shrouded by controversy following the revelation made by Newsfirst.
Australian mineral exploration company Titanium Sands Limited in a project report said it has carried out exploration activities on 204 square kilometers in Manor Island using 9 licenses since 2015. Recently, it had announced its intentions to enter into a mining project targeting 265 metric tons of minerals that include heavy metals such as ilmenite, rutile, zircon and garnet. According to the project report, Titanium Sands Limited said that all exploration licenses relating to the Manor project are now owned completely by its company. It said that it had obtained these licenses after acquiring 2 Mauritius companies named Srinel Holdings Limited and Bright Angel Limited, which it said were exploration license holders. But the documents seen by Newsfirst shows that these licenses are owned by 5 other companies and an individual. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau Act requires license holders to submit a progress report on their exploration activities once in 6 months. However, officials at the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau confirmed that none of these companies had informed about the acquisition in their progress reports. Instead, they had portrayed that the exploration activities had been carried out without the involvement of any other company. The failure to furnish this information is illegal and is a breach of the contract and can result in a fine not exceeding 50,000 rupees and an imprisonment term not exceeding 6 months or both if convicted by a court.
Based on the information received by the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, our technical committee has decided to seek an explanation from the license holders. We will inquire about these matters from them. The future course of action would be decided based on their explanation.
A media briefing to create awareness on the Voice Teen Sri Lanka was held at Stein Studios in Ratmalana last evening.
And who's gonna make it to the knockout?
The Voice Teen International Reality Television Singing Competition aired on Sirius TV has reached its final stage. Battle round ended last week, and up next is the knockout round where the 4 judges will select 16 competitors from 4 teams. Thereafter, out of the 16, 4 will be selected for the semi-finals, with the grand finale scheduled for the 1st and the 2nd of August.
You will probably wonder why we started off with the teens version. That's because we realized that we have to do more for the industry by giving the youth a unique platform for them to showcase their talent, thereby introducing more talented singers to this industry. So having seen the success of the show not only in television but mainly in the digital space, we have realized that these young people can be very successful in their futures. In the digital space, we have reached over 165 million views as well as 500,000 subscriptions. And this shows that basically our youth of Sri Lanka are good enough to be showcased on global platform.
Reality shows ලංකාවට අඳුනලා දුන්නේ කවුද කියලා ඔබෙන් ලක්ෂපති ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇහුවොතින් ඔබ ඒකට ABCD කියලා එකක් වුමනා වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒත් අපි Bත් අපි Cත් අපි Dත් අපි.
If you are ever questioned as to who introduced reality shows to Sri Lanka, you will not have to think twice. However, we need strategies on how to take our music to the global platform. That is the challenge, because India has broken all barriers and taken their music across the globe. Where is Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka has talents that can challenge India, so our aim through Voice Teens is to connect our children to the international level.
International label එකකට අපි දරුවෝන්ව බද්ධ කරන්න.
සිරසට ඕනේ වුණා 2005.
Sirasa introduced reality television to Sri Lanka back in 2005, and now Sirasa is ready to take this to the next level. We chose The Voice, the international reality television singing competition franchise, after much consideration. This franchise incorporates a very complex process. As such, international franchises requires the adhering to guidelines of intellectual property.
Viewers do not see one side of the picture And that is the efforts that I have to take to prepare the contestant to face the next challenge. This is a game. This is a challenge. I must train and prepare one contestant to compete with another at the finale.
We are the trainers.
We are the trainers. So when we train the contestants, we understand each individual's capacity and their level of capability.
We have no personal issues with the contestants. No contestants has been chosen based on personal connections. We are doing our job, and I state this with much responsibility. When working with kids, we must exercise extra caution. Our only target is to produce a generation of talented individuals. The next phase of The Voice Teen Sri Lanka will commence this weekend. There will be setbacks for everyone, but what's most important is to do the right thing, be ethical, and remember the comeback will always be greater than the setback. These were the inspiring words of Melanie Janine Kanaka, the first Sri Lankan woman to be elected as the Global Vice President of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, who shared her views with Newsfirst this evening.
I consider it an honor to be part of this great leadership team in a fraternity of over 650,000 members and students spread throughout the globe, now living in 179 countries and territories. In CIMA's over 100-year history, I am the first female outside of the United Kingdom where the institute was established under a royal charter to be elected as a vice president. But very briefly, I can tell anyone that there are no quick fixes to making it to the top. It is through sheer commitment, dedication, consistent hard work, and focused passion that generates the outcomes that will enable one to rise to the top. I believe there are no shortcuts, and the climb to the top is never, ever easy. In this journey, I'll be honest, I've had my fair share of setbacks as well. But all I can say is that when we have setbacks, it just makes us stronger. So there will definitely be setbacks in any area that you embark on. But what is most important is to do the right thing, be ethical and principled, and press on knowing that the comeback will always be greater than the setback. I hope to be an inspirational role model for women, particularly Asian women. And I would like to leave something with all my fellow Sri Lankans, both male and female. I open quotes and I say, we can dream, but it is only with persistent hard work and principled values supported by strong ethics that we can reach the top. And I close my quote.
Kasturi Chella Raja Wilson was appointed as the Group CEO of Hema's Holdings PLC. She becomes the first female Group CEO of a public quoted conglomerate in Sri Lanka, effective from the 1st of October 2020. A former student of Holy Family Convent, Bambalapitiya, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and an alumni of Harvard Business School, Kasturi joined Hema's Holdings PLC in 2002. Meanwhile, Ranjit Koduthuakku has been appointed as Chief Executive Officer and General Manager of People's Bank. His appointment follows the retirement of acting CEO and General Manager M.A. Boniface Silva.
9 modernized unibuffers, the improved version of unicorns, and 1 recovery vehicle were shipped to be handed over to the Combat Convoy Company of the Sri Lankan UN peacekeepers serving in Mali. These are interventions of Sri Lanka Electrical and Mechanical Engineers troops of the Sri Lanka Army.
Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, Chief of Defence Staff and Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, inspected the 9 modernized unibuffers, the improved version of unicorns, 1 recovery vehicle and 3 containers before they were shipped. Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said the country has a skilled electrical and mechanical engineering regiment within the army and the vehicles were produced within a month at a cost of 10 million rupees.
The United Nations had imposed conditions on the standards of these vehicles. Electrical and Mechanical Engineering Regiment of the Sri Lanka Army produced these vehicles to meet those standards. Those vehicles were produced in a manner to provide a certain degree of comfort to the Sri Lankan war heroes. I believe we would be asked to supply these vehicles soon. There could be a demand for them even from foreign nations in the future.
We leave you tonight with a rendition of the Nagitimu Sri Lanka song presented by the John Keel's Airline Division.
Nagitimu, Sri Lanka.